Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Traders Mind Chat live show. Today, we'll be doing some live trading. Well, we will first be talking about the trade that I put on yesterday in Bros, ticker BROS. We'll go through that, the trading plan, everything surrounding that trade, taking your questions along the way, and then we will go through the current focus list that I have. And the focus list is something that I put together every single day to help me prepare for the trading day ahead, and it helps to knock out all that FOMO and everything else that comes along with on the emotional side of trading. But before we jump into that, let me know where you are watching this. I see a bunch of people hopping on the live stream already. Welcome, welcome, both over here on YouTube, on Facebook, and I'm looking over here at ShareVision. So welcome, everybody. Let's dive in. Let's dive into the open trades. Open trades in Bros, Dutch Brothers. This is it right here, and I have my annotations off. I've got a lot. I always like to mark up my charts a lot. Here, I'll turn them on just for a second so you can see how I mark up the charts. And it looks like a lot, and it is a lot, and I would recommend that you mark up your charts as well. But the way that I like to start out whenever I'm going to analyze any kind of a chart or anything is to first turn the annotations off, reset all the charts. And this is what I do for myself. This is what I preach, or one of the many things that I preach to our members, is to start with your charts, reset, and annotations off. That way it frees up the mind. Like you're able to see like what's actually there versus being dialed into any one part of the screen or where you happen to be out in the trade. So is this trade moving for you or against you? And it helps. It's one of those things that can help eliminate a lot of emotion in the trade. So that's step one. All right, so let's take a look at Bros. So great breakout and uptrend yet obviously yesterday, up about 10-11% immediately on this trade. I'll zoom in a bit here on the daily time frame and walk you through some of what I was seeing on this trade, and then I'll throw on the annotations. And of course, again, as you have questions, just put them right into the chat and I'll answer them for you. So coming over here, what I saw was this double bottom pattern, right? So recent IPO, right? It ran up a pretty big run up between this breakout down here around the $45 level, ran up to about $80 a share, and then it consolidated, right? So nearly 100% move, and then it forms this double bottom, right? And this double bottom, it's not the best double bottom by any stretch. Like it's formed majority below the 50-day moving average. The 50-day moving average is curving down. Those were some of the things that I was thinking about, like when I was assessing this trade. But the thing that really got me interested in this one in particular was in seeing the bottom of the base, like right around here as it was forming that double bottom. And what I started to notice was the dry up in volume, right? So this is the volume right down here. That's the volume. And I noticed that the volume was drying up as price was rounding out the bottom of this and consolidating and then dropping a bit more. Volume still pretty low. And then when I started to see some of these larger volume spikes, I noticed that they were to the upside. So that has me thinking, oh, so there's some buyers stepping in. This is starting to show some momentum. Okay, then price comes in a bit more and volume is drying up to the downside. And even on the down days, it was showing some accumulation, right? So some buying in there. On this day here, let me zoom in a bit more, right? So that day right there, you see how there's that volume spike? Everybody see that? So what happened on this day was price pushed lower and it closed off the lows, right? Generally speaking, the high, like if it's a down day, the higher it closes in the range, the better. It shows even more accumulation. But over here, it closes maybe in about the third of its trading range. So there's still some buying coming in on that day. Okay, fine. Don't want to beat a dead horse on that one, but that's basically what that's showing over here. Then these bars, right? So you're starting to see volume come in over here to the upside and prices coming back to the 50-day moving average. It forms this little handle area right over here, right? And volume dries up in the handle, and then price rallies back above the 50-day moving average. And so I'm seeing it on this day on January 31st, and I'm getting ready to buy it on February 1st. Right, so that's yesterday. So I'm buying. I placed an order yesterday or yesterday morning pre-market to buy close to the open as we're breaking above this level over here. And so I'm seeing it as a double bottom with a handle, and this being the handle. And the handle is low in the base, but there's plenty of momentum on this side. Uh, there's also this line down here, the relative strength line. So this is a relative strength versus the S&P 500. And those green lines are showing that that Rose is outperforming the S&P over the past 50 days. And this one here, I've changed it so it's over the past 7 days. So to really show that price is making a move here. And that's the type of stocks that I want to be in. I love being in those high momentum growth stocks, and that this fits the bill. So it had all of that going for it. Plus, on this day right here, right before the breakout, um, price, if you notice that it's sitting right on that purple line right there. Uh, so on that day, the low of the day, price is on that purple line. That's the 21-day exponential moving average. A great place to set a stop loss. If this is going to break out, then I wouldn't want it to break out and then come back and fall below both the 50-day moving average and then the 21-day moving average. If that happens, then I'm out. I'm no longer interested in this idea. But when I get to have it be relatively tight, and on this trade, like that was actually uh, nearly 10%, right? Like this thing can move. So I had that part of it set up and actually liked it given the momentum and how the market was moving and rallying off the lows. I thought that it fit that backdrop as well. See, it looks like somebody commented in here. Lee says, if you're here tomorrow, hope to see you. Yeah, I'll be here tomorrow. So we're doing these live streams 3 days a week. We're doing these live streams 3 days a week. We're doing them every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and it's always at 2 p.m., barring something weird that happens, right? It's always those 3 days, and I'm always posting it ahead of time on YouTube. And if you are on my email newsletter, then, and that's free, by the way, then you're getting an alert the day of saying that, oh, here's what we're going to do, and here's a link, and if you can't make it live, then click the link and watch the recording. So we've got all that stuff going on too. Anyway, back to bros. So I see this, right? And whenever I'm going to take any kind of a trade, I always like to find first, where am I going to enter? Right? That's the first thing that I'm looking for. Where am I going to enter? Where's my stop loss going to be? And where is my potential target? Like those three things. Well, where am I looking to maybe start to scale out or take my full target, or how far do I think that this thing could reasonably go before it starts to consolidate? So looking at this, and this is a double bottom. So a double bottom, for those of you that are familiar with William O'Neill's How to Make Money in Stocks, A double bottom is a classic pattern, and the move off of the double bottom is typically in the range of about 20 to 25%. So, and that's off the main pivot area. So that off of a double bottom, right? We've got the double bottom here. I got in with a cheat area, right? Like I'm getting in a little bit early. The actual pivot on the double bottom is up here. So that target from around here, right, gets you to 20 to 25%, a little bit beyond where I have my target at 65. When price is in the vicinity, right, like so 20, 25%, right, or within a Fibonacci level, right? Like, so this is a Fibonacci retracement level, the 618 level. For those of you that saw the live stream that we did with Dennis Wilborn a few weeks back, definitely check that one out. We talk all about Fibonacci. Um, this target, right? So it's pretty close to lining up with the 20 to 25% off this main pivot. It's within it for this lower a cheat area, right? So 23.5%. It's lined up pretty close to the Fibonacci 618 retracement level. And now you have a round number, 65. So those three things, great. I like that kind of a target. So I get in on this day, and I have potentially a little bit better than a 2-to-1 reward to risk on this trade. Generally, I like to have my trades offer at least 3-to-1 or better. But when I decided to take this trade, I saw it as a high probability trade, and it was in within the range of what I typically make on a trade. So I typically make about twice my risk on a trade. And I'm tracking how much I make on each trade and all my stats and everything. So this is the actual entry notes that I gave to our members, and we're tracking it here in the open trades. And here too is the current trade management plan. We'll go through that in a minute, but I wanted to show you too the stats. So generally on an average winner, I'm making about 19.5%, and I'm making close to 2 times my risk. So given that, I'm comfortable taking this trade because it exceeds what I typically make on a trade. So great, high probability trade that gives me a little bit more than what I generally make. Perfect. So I get into this trade, and by the way, are any of you that are on here now, are you familiar with the anchored VWAPs? Anybody familiar with that? Anchored value weighted average price. That's what this line here and that line there, those two blue lines, that's what that represents. I started incorporating more of those based on Pattern Profits. His handle is I'm not, or Brian Shannon. Yeah, Brian Shannon. Yeah, his name escaped me for a moment, but yeah, it's definitely Brian Shannon. I watched a webinar that he was doing, and one of our other members, Anthony, started to look a little bit more closely at that. And so I thought, all right, I want to expand my horizons too. Let me take a look at anchored VWAPs. And so the strategy is to place it from the swing high and the swing low, and see where it lands. And basically, above the line shows that buyers are in control. Below the line shows that sellers are in control, and that's why you place it from at the swing high and at the swing low. Swing high up here, swing low down here. One of the patterns that you can see with that too is this pinch, right? Like you see how this blue line is coming down and this blue line is going up, and they're getting narrower and narrower. It's another thing that can make this stop loss where I set it down there that much stronger. So that's why going into this particular trade had a lot of confidence in this idea. So I decided to put it on. At the time, I didn't have a lot of confidence in the general market, right? So general market down here, right? Like we're still below the we're fighting with the 200-day moving average at the time, and the new highs versus new lows are all over the place. There was still a lot of turmoil in the market, so that's why when I took this trade, I took it with a smaller position, right? And so that's something that I like to do too. As I'm finding high probability, uh, high reward to low risk ideas, depending on the environment that we're in, I'll either place a much bigger trade or just start out with a smaller amount. So since we were in uh, not the best environment, I wanted to just put out a feeler, right? So I put on position. This is about a third of what I would normally trade. So started down here, and then yesterday, right, price breaks out, pretty heavy duty volume on the breakout, right? So if we're looking at this, it's about the highest daily volume that we've had on this since close to the IPO, right? Going back to September of last year. Fantastic. So it breaks out, and I like to take off something when I've made no one times my risk on this one. And on this one, I made about 12% right there on day one. So I take 10% off. And then what I also did was I raised my stop near the end of the day, just below that 1R level, right? And that got taken out right here in that little dipsy doodle, right? So I'm out of 50% of the trade at that point. Being locking in those gains lets me sit through this, right? Well, without shitting my pants, right? Like, with because if you're up significantly on a trade and you're looking at the market and things are kind of iffy, and then all of a sudden, at one point, you're this gain, right? You're up 13.5%, and then all of a sudden, at one point in the trade, it's back down to 3.5. All different kinds of things can go through your mind, right? Like, type into the chat. Let me know, like, what kind of things go through your mind if you're seeing something like that. Like I that used to freak me out when I would see moves like that, because then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, should I have sold earlier, or is the market rolling against me, or what are the market conditions? And then that's when the fear starts to set in, and starting to look all around. Oh well, what are some other people saying about this trade idea, about the market, about blah blah blah, and that's not a good place to be mentally when you are trading. So taking profits, taking profits and locking in gains lets me free roll the rest of this trade, right? Uh, so I'm out of half of it. My gains are secure, right? My stop is below yesterday's low, pretty much at break even. So I'm free rolling this trade, right? Like for those of you that are familiar with Mark Minervini, fantastic guy, won the U.S. Investing Championship last year. Free roll the trade. That's exactly what I'm doing at this point. And given the breakout, given the relative strength, given everything else, you know what? Like this is in a great position to continue to work, and well, it allows you to also think about the bigger picture, right? Because my goal isn't to just win on this trade, right? Like, of course, we want to win on trades that we take. If we didn't want to win on each trade that we take, we wouldn't be placing the trade, right? But it gives us the perspective to allow the probabilities to work themselves out, right? So the idea is to win big on the winners and to lose as small as we possibly can on the losers. So the more that I'm able to let this trade run, then the better it's going to be for my equity curve. And last year, right, like running total from last year, 75% from last year. That's what we want. Any questions on any of this so far? So again, the trading plan as of this moment, and my trading plan gets reviewed and updated each day. But as of right now, my I've locked in half of my profits, and my stop is about break even, with the plan to let it continue to run until it shows me other signs of other sell signals. All right, so next up, stocks on the radar are daily trading focus lists. All right, so let's take a look at this over here, the focus list. So yesterday, right? So every day I'm running screens in this other tool, right? Like not uh in Trading View, but in this one over here. I'll drag it over here. So I run my screens in this tool. It's called MarketSmith. Uh, Fantastic tool for screening. You can see over here that there are how many screens do I run? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. 10 screens that I run every day. I set up these screens, and it's from those screens that I'm able to build a focus list, able to see like what stocks are setting up for tomorrow, what types of stocks, what groups, what sectors, quality of the setups. Are there many? Are there just a few? I get a lot of information just from running these screens. And so I run those screens and I populate them over here, and then I'll start to assess them. So and I break it up. I break it up into a focus list and an in the neighborhood list. So I'll continue to keep track of stocks. If they're kind of getting close, but they're not quite ready yet, they go over there in the neighborhood. So you can see that there's not a ton that I was thrilled with. And even like this one here, like I ended up demoting, right? Like it's I had it as an A. I need to drag that down because I made it a B. Like there's and over here too, I'm keeping track of all the different notes on different ideas too, and that's something that you'll that I recommend getting into the habit of. If you are looking at different ideas, keep a journal of what it is that you're seeing and whatever's in your head. Get it out of your head and either onto a spreadsheet, onto a notepad, into if you want to get a nicer journal, do that. Just get it out of your head and put it somewhere where you will be able to go back and look at that later on, because it's going to be so. There's so many benefits to journaling. We could do an entire stream just on journaling, but for now, just trust me, do it, and thank me later. Back to this. So yeah, well, with OKE, like the problem with it is that it wasn't the leader in its group, not the leader in its group, not by a long shot, and yeah, that's basically the main thing. Yeah, and momentum is beginning to shift. Yeah, that's the main thing here. It wasn't close to being the leader in its group. Uh, Generally speaking, I like to trade the leaders. Right? The leaders are the ones with the most momentum. And this one, even though it started to show some momentum picking up, like, or at least having some strong support around the 200-day moving average, and then breaking above the 50-day moving average, and it has several up days in a row over here. Not really like the type of strong momentum leader that I like. So that's why this got demoted. This one too, MUSA, it has earnings coming up, right? So I generally don't like to trade on or start a position the day of earnings. There are some exceptions to the rule, just like with everything else, but for here, I decided to just stick with bros and sit on my hands for today, not putting on anything else. We don't need to trade every single day. or start new positions every day as a swing trader. You take the best ones and that's it. So much of trading is sitting and waiting, and it's much easier for you to grow your equity curve if you don't have to dig yourself out of a hole. How do you not dig yourself out of a hole? By avoiding trades that are suboptimal. And so part of our job is to have like clearly define our setups. What makes a great setup for us? What's the bare minimum that we wanted to look for? What makes one ideal? And then just focus on the ideal ones. So it was MUSA, OKE. Let me know what trades that you guys have on your radar. We could go look through some of those as well. Post those into the chat now. Yeah, CPG. This one actually looked halfway decent. It looked decent over here on the weekly time frame. Right, let me reset these charts. It looks strong on the weekly. Like what I like over here on the weekly is this volume, right? Like so breaking out over here, up 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row, increasing volume, right? Like that volume surge is huge. The relative strength line busted into new highs or new 52-week highs, and this is consolidating, right? Like it's forming a potential what's called the square box, right? So if a square box base is a base that kind of looks like a box, which this does, right? Like you could fit it in a box. Where's the little box annotation? Yeah, right here. Right, so you can draw a little box around it, and 4 weeks. So it's working on that fourth week, but was kind of on the cusp of it, and at the time, so yesterday, the 21 EMA was just starting to catch up, wasn't quite there. Now, with this pulling back, I actually like it a little bit more because it's given time for the 21 EMA to start to catch up. We'll see what happens with this idea. And every day, too, right? And this is the reason why I do fresh focus lists and watch lists every single day, because the trades evolve every day, and I only want to put my money into what's the best of the best, right? So what's the best today might not be the best tomorrow. Something else might emerge, and that's how I found Bros, right? Like Bros wasn't even on the list uh, over the weekend, right? Like Bros didn't show up on my radar until this day here, right? Until Monday, and then I got in on Tuesday. Right? Like that's the power, that's the point of doing these kinds of watch lists regularly each day. Julio wants to take a look at Microsoft. Let's take a look at Microsoft. All right, let's zoom out over here. Yeah, Julio, if you could tell us your idea about Microsoft in the chat. Tell us your idea. Well, what are you thinking? What do you see? What do you like about it? Any other context that you could give, and I'll talk you through some of what I'm seeing here. Right, so obviously big liquid leader that everybody knows. It's been running now for a very, very, very long time here. One that, yeah, if you're holding this in a long-term account, right, like your retirement account or something like that, and you're looking to park your money here, well, what I like to do for those kind of ideas is to focus primarily on the monthly and somewhat on the weekly to help time entries and sales. Um, this or last week, I should say, it undercut that gray line right there. That's the 40-week line, and it reversed. It rallied. It had a positive reversal, and it did that on pretty heavy duty volume. Great. So people with a that are trading long term are stepping in and buying there, supporting the position. And if you notice this low, pretty damn close to this swing low back here, right? So when I see that kind of stuff, I like to draw a little horizontal line right there. And that way I could go back in time and see like, oh, well, what does this line up with, right? Look to the left. So come back over here and we could see that it was actually being supported by the September and October lows right around there. It did undercut it briefly, but support and resistance they're more of a range. So that's what happened there. And it also has been finding support around this red line. That's a 12-month moving average. Now we're looking at a monthly chart. So it did that, and it closed high in the monthly range too. So for right now, it seems like it's consolidating. Longer term consolidation, consolidating in the past 4 months. Um, you mentioned that it's breaking the 21 EMA to the upside. That's true. Um, Personally, I wouldn't look at this for a swing trade, and I'll tell you why. There's for one, it's still consolidating longer term, right? So we saw the consolidation over here on the monthly. We also see it over here on the weekly. It did break above the 21, but you have this overhead supply, right? You have a declining 10-week moving average over here. You have the 50-day moving average over here. And so what happens when we break through the floor, right? When we break through the floor, it becomes our ceiling, right? Like if you're upstairs in your house and you walk downstairs, what was once your floor is now your ceiling. So same principle happens in the market. This area might, right? I'm not saying that it will, but it might. The potential is there for this to be resistance. And if it's going to consolidate for a little while, it has run for a very long time, then uh, it makes sense for this area to be a point of contention. I'd rather not deal with that if I'm looking for a swing, right? And the reason is like we want to get as many things lined up in our favor as we possibly can, right? So this found a lot of support, but the difference between something like this and you might be saying like, oh well, you traded Dutch Bros and that had a whole bunch of like the same thing, like the declining 50-day moving average. Well, it actually broke back above it over here, but um, a couple of things that are different. Right? Like it was starting to rally and increase volume in this neighborhood. It was starting to get back above it, and you started to have the shorter term moving averages already curved up. Right? If we're looking at Microsoft, yeah, it started to curve up a little bit too, but there's yeah, there's it's the I think it's the longer term consolidation that it happens to be in, and having been already having made such a strong move, I think that that's part of what's deterring me uh, or seeing this as having more overhead to contend with. Plus, here's another thing, right? Like so, like yeah, sometimes you catch a lot of things in your eye and in your head, and then when you're trying to explain it, like it takes a moment for your mouth to catch up to what your head is thinking. That's what's happening to me. But anyhow, part of what I'm seeing too, this rally here, declining volume on that rally, right? So that's a sign that the momentum is petering out, whereas in grows price is rising and so is volume. That's what got me interested in that. More of a position trade than a swing trade. And Dave, I see your question too. We'll definitely get to it. Let me. I'm going to wrap up here with Microsoft. All right, so Microsoft. Back to Microsoft. All right. So more of a position than a swing trade. So then, if we're going to do this as a position trade, so a position trade is something that we're planning to hold for a while, right? Intermediate, long term, breaking above the 21, so it's starting to show a little bit of a move higher. I think that part of the rationale would be like, okay, where am I going to place my stop? Where am I going to get out of this if I'm wrong? If I'm a position trader, I want to get in as close to the lows as I can. Um, I would have wanted to get in like closer to the 200-day moving average, because if I'm a position trader, I'd want to give it to this level down here, right? Because uh, a big question that I ask myself on every trade, position trade, swing trade, day trade, whatever, is where am I wrong? On a position trade, I would consider myself wrong down here. And if I'm getting in up here, then that means that I've got to let this thing fall about 12% before I'm wrong. That's a long ways for me. If you're comfortable with that, okay. Another thing that I look at too is, all right, if my stop is going to be down here, 12% away, how far do I think that this thing is going to run? Well, if I think that this thing is going to run, I don't know, just get to the highs, right? Like get back to about 350. Then this is a one-to-one trade, right? So it's make a dollar, risk a dollar. That doesn't really that doesn't do it for me. I'd want it to be able to get to at least, uh, yeah, 400 is in the neighborhood, right? Of a 2-to-1 reward to risk. I would be looking for that to like at least get there, right? Like absolute bare minimum, right? 2-to-1. Like personally, I prefer 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1, 10-to-1 if I can find those kind of ideas. But uh, 2-to-1, not like I would need this to get to at least 400 if I were to take this. Um, Dave, URI is my favorite short. It's right at the 50-day moving average. Ooh, let's take a look at URI. URI, United Rentals. Let's reset our charts. And by the way, too, for the elite members, every Wednesday we do an Ask Us Anything right after the close. So I'm on there. Our other coach, Stu, is on there. He's fantastic. Yeah, there's I've learned so much from this guy. It's ridiculous. But we're both on there. We're both answering questions live. And unlike this on YouTube and ShareVision and everything, it's not just like a chat like what you guys are doing. The microphones are open, and we're on Discord, and that makes things so much easier to have like a real actual conversation. So we're doing that today after the close. If you're interested, go check out the Elite program over on Mara Wealth. Here's the website, marawealth.com. You can just click Elite membership over there. Anyway, back to this. So your favorite short. So yeah, I can see how you would like this too. Like it, so it's already uh, started to roll over. It has the 10-week line crossing below the 40-week line, death cross, some people call it. Kind of a lagging indicator. Here's something that kind of has me interested as potential short. So if you remember from the last trade, right? We were talking with Microsoft how it was coming up off the lows, and we took a look at the volume and it was going the wrong way. Same thing, right? Yeah, you have a little volume spike there, but volume is also drying up as price is working its way higher. So I'm not sure if this would necessarily be, if I would be, like, I wouldn't call this my favorite short. Like, I like to see a lot more momentum to the downside. A lot, like, I'm a momentum fiend, right? Like, I always want to see a lot of momentum in my trades. As a swing trader, that's what I'm looking for. Um, I would have liked what would make me a lot more interested in this is like if it had some really heavy duty volume to the downside. Like it's had some, but it's just kind of like drifted down. Another thing that I like to look for is the group rank, right? So that's where MarketSmith comes in. And you don't necessarily need MarketSmith. You could find it for free on investors.com. But since I have MarketSmith, it makes life a little easier. What I'm looking at is this right here, right? So the group rank, it's 88 out of 197. That's that's like a decent rating, right? So it's like a little bit better than middle of the pack. Generally, I would want it to be weakening. So let me throw this on here for a minute. URI, and I can see how the group rank did. Um, How it was to start the week, 176. Then it was 172 last week, right? So it was declining. Um, Apparently, it's jumped up uh, midweek. That's interesting. I'd want to also another thing to consider too, Dave, is what do the other stocks in the group look like? Is this like the weakest one in the group, or is it the strongest one? Is it an outlier? Well, what's going on with the group? So I'll go through some of the top names in the group, and that one's consolidating. This one looks like it's consolidating. This is consolidating. That's consolidating too. Yeah, it looks like the group is consolidating versus getting ready to roll over and die. Like PayPal has been like here's an example of a great short. And so it too like started to break down, and then you get this right. Like that's the heavy duty volume that you want to see on a short, and then it starts to fall right. And so what happens right like that the shorts start falling, and then people are like, oh great, I missed the move, and then it falls completely off the radar. But what happened here, right? Like, so it looks like it's found a bottom, but it's just consolidating because it fell so far already. Consolidates for about a month, a little bit more than a month, allows the 10-week line to catch up, and then bam, just continues to collapse here. And it's interesting. Like I use PayPal all the time. Like PayPal is part of what helps me uh, run my business. So it's interesting, like that it's the stock is getting beat up like this. Anyway, let's see. Um, Question from Michael Davenport. And then I think we'll have quite time for maybe one or two more questions, and then I'm gonna have to call it a wrap. All right. So Michael Davenport says, "Hello. Will you take a look at CLR? Thank you and be well." Oh, thank you, Michael, and you be well as well. All right. So CLR. Let's take a look at CLR. All right. So CLR. Remember, we want to start with clean charts. Reset the charts. Very important. Helps us be objective. And let's take a look at the monthly first. So it's come off the lows. It's consolidating now the past couple of months in this neighborhood up here. Take a closer look at the weekly. Weekly almost looks like it's forming like a cup and handle over here. Um, the volume, so like it doesn't knock my socks off, right? Like, so I would be like already putting this into like the like if I was going to give this the like a 5 rate, like a rating out of 5, it would probably be like setting up, but like maybe a 3 or a 4, like a 4 at best, maybe a 3. Part of the reason why too is that that it's coming off the lows. Like it doesn't have a ton of momentum in here yet. Like I like how it's come down, it's consolidated, and then it consolidated briefly over here, kind of briefly over there. I'd like to see those consolidations be a little sharper. And then if I'm going to look for an entry, where am I going to, like the entry is pretty clear, right? Like you would enter over here at the highs, and those highs also correlate to what you got going on back here. Okay, great. So where are we going to place a stop? Maybe right below this low right here. You got the 21 catching up. So that could be a decent spot. It's a 7.5% stop. Um, it's not bad. It's not bad as far as stop placement goes. Something else to be aware of, earnings coming up soon. Um, that depending on how you're looking to trade this one, that can be a factor, right? Like if you're looking for a short-term swing, yeah, you could get in. Like if it breaks out tomorrow, you're probably out of it ahead of earnings, or you can be potentially out of it ahead of earnings. Well, whatever you want to do. If you're looking to do more of what Julio was looking to do with position trade, then uh, you would have to sit through earnings, and then you're debating like, well, does it make sense or not? Um, let's see. Well, what's the group look like? All right, so CLR, CLR. Group, oh, it's a highly rated group, oil and gas. How does this one compare to the other ones in the group, right? So leading group like that, I always love to see that. And I always like to see this too. Like this always catches my attention. This is the number of funds that own the stock. I like seeing it increase quarter over quarter because it's uh, the big funds of the market, like your mutual funds, pension funds, hedge funds, all those guys. Like that's who owns this. That's what's driving those numbers. And if we see that increasing quarter over quarter over quarter, then that means that they're still buying it up, and they can't buy all in one shot like we can. So if we're seeing those numbers increase quarter over quarter, then it's something that can potentially add to the demand of the stock and higher prices. So, so it's got that. Let's see how the other stocks in the group are doing. Still consolidating. Um, OAS looks like it made a new high today. So yeah, this is, yeah, I would say that CLR is right there with the other leaders. I like last week's volume starting to come up. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Um, I would still like maybe I would put it at a level 4 at this point. I do like that it's consolidated a little bit and the 21 is catching up. Like I really like my stops to incorporate either the 21 or the 50. I've been trying to do a lot more of that lately. Michael also says that they've been pretty active in M&A recently. Yeah, so that's another fundamental backdrop too, right? So um, part of what I think is good to consider is if we're going to consider something, then we should consider those kind of things throughout, right? So if uh, mergers and acquisitions is something that you typically look for or not, let me not say it that way. So if you're looking for some kind of like that kind of a catalyst, like then it makes sense to look for like, oh, like, well, what does this thing have going on for it, right? Like almost like the N in Can Slim, if you're familiar with Can Slim, like what's going on, right? So maybe for CLR, it has to do with that M&A, the mergers and acquisitions. For something else, it might be a new product, it might be a new CEO or something like that? Like, well, what's the thing that it's got going on? Let's see. Um, last question. I'll take. Let's see. There's this from Julio. I'm just reading things too. Thanks, Mike. It sure doesn't have a good risk reward. I would need to find a lower risk entry point. So that's going back and talking about Microsoft. Okay, great. How would you trade an earnings gap up like AMD? For AMD, I actually don't particularly like this one as a earnings gap, right? So it did gap up, but well, the types of gap ups that I like, and Michael, you're welcome. Just saw your comment too. So the type of earnings gap ups that I like are what's called breakaway gaps. So let's say, actually, did Google have a breakaway gap? Yeah, like this. Like so, I like this a little bit better. It doesn't quite count as a breakaway gap because it didn't break away from all of the consolidation. But let's see, like this back here, that's a breakaway gap, right? Where price was consolidating breaks out, it's at fresh all-time highs. Like I like this kind of an earnings gap because it gives me a great range, right? If price continues in the direction of the gap, then it's continuing a trend. If it doesn't, then it's moving sideways, and if it falls down, then it's closing that gap. It gives a very great way to say, okay, here's my entry, here's my stop. For AMD, you don't have that. And so price gapped up over here and it immediately found overhead resistance, right? It, it had the 100 right there. It had prior support that turned into resistance around this area. Draw that line right over here. Yeah, almost to the penny, hits its head right there. And now it's consolidating. So you have people on both sides of the trade. People that were trapped up here that are looking to sell this, right? And so that right now, they're winning the session, but not winning the day, like because price is still up on the day. It's below the 100, below the 21. Let's see what happens. For me, like this is not one that I would be trading right here. So another thing, Julio, we want to clearly define our setups. We don't want to just trade whatever is moving. We want to have a clearly defined setup, a minimum criteria for the setup, and an understanding of what's going to make this particular setup that I'm interested in ideal. So that way, like how many boxes does this thing check, right? Like if it checks off all of them, then fantastic. That's the trade that you want to be in. If it only checks off half of them, then we could do better, right? And sometimes doing better means just sitting on your hands and waiting. That's what it was like for me today. Like again, I'm still just sitting in this one, bros, right? Locked in the game, and well, now I'm able to sit here and talk to you guys and not be sweating bullets of well, what's this thing going to do? So anyhow, wrap things up here. That's it for today. Just getting the little thing going here for the outro. I want to say thank you all so much for joining me today. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of great questions here. Still see some other comments coming in. You guys are fantastic. We really love jumping on and hanging out with you guys. If for anybody again that wants to join us for the today's Ask Us Anything, we do that for our members. Just go to marawealth.com. It would be helpful if I was actually sharing the screen. Go to marawealth.com, go to Elite Membership, and grab the Elite Membership. And I'll see you inside the Discord chat later today. And you can take a look at all the other cool stuff that we have too. All right. So have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here on the streams again tomorrow. For no, what are we doing? We're doing market analysis, so like overall health of the market. I'll see you then. Take care. Much love. Peace out.
Hey, thanks so much for sticking around to the end. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button down below and become a part of the Marrow Wealth community. And make sure that you check out some of the other videos on the channel. They're exactly what you need to see. And leave a comment down below. I read all of them. Leave a comment.